Peace within chaos. Part 1. Diagnosis. In the trap of ego and the world. When we say "I'd," we are all born into this world naked, without beliefs, without indoctrination, without even a sense of self. After a certain time of enjoying that pure fitra, trouble begins. We start becoming aware of ourselves, that we exist, that we have an ego. We start controlling our parents, manipulating them with tears, experimenting with our environment, and layering upon ourselves strata of knowledge, beliefs, truths and untruths originating from ourselves and our parents. We become someone. We acquire character. We invent ourselves and create the illusion of our ego. For the first time we say, "I." Who am I? I cannot say that I am first name and last name, because that is something my parents gave me, and even if it changed, I would still be me. I am not my profession, because if I weren't a student, I would still be me. I am not my other roles, son, boyfriend, friend, colleague, because they do not define me. They are merely my attributes. I can say that I am a human being, but that implies I cease to exist when I die. That is the hardest question. Man is constantly waiting for something. That is his curse. He chases something, waits for something to happen so he can be happy when that arrives, when he reaches a certain goal, or looks at the landscape from a mountain peak. Man's sheer inability to be happy here and now speaks volumes about his consciousness. We hear so often from mental health gurus that we need to be present, but what does that even mean? What does it mean to be self-aware here and now? I think that is what essentially describes a human best. It might be a bit unclear, but give me a few minutes. At 24 years of age as a man, the description that fits me best is the following: witness. What do I mean by this? I think, therefore I am, as a philosopher once said. A witness means that I alone witness my own existence. Shahid. This last part is a bit controversial, but you will get used to my style. Don't take anything I say for granted, because I am, after all, just some 24-year-old guy searching for himself and for the truth, just like most of you. But I am here to take you by the hand, whatever level of soul you are on and however much experience, or XP, to put it in gaming terms, you have. Why? Take my hand and let's go, because I want us all to find each other. I deeply believe we are all one vast organism. We originate from the same source, whatever we may be, and your success is my success, your happiness is my happiness. As the universal laws say, as within, so without, as above, so below. Let us dive into the depths to see the stars, together. Let us close our eyes to see God, or his closest representation, a zipped image that we can comprehend with our limited monkey brains, this frail being that we are right now on earth. That is what prompted me to write, because we truly are lacking, we are missing God, the true God. Not the one described by religions. We are missing the Creator in our lives. We all feel it, if our internal compass is even slightly functional. He controls everything and wants me to write this, and you, who are reading, judge for yourself what you think he wants from you. It is no accident that you are here, be my guest. I heard somewhere that coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. Nothing happens by accident. The paradox of modern man. Like everything in nature, man tends to take the path that consumes the least energy. He saves it because nature's cruelty taught him to do so. He learned that when food runs out, he dies of hunger, so he conserves it. He learned that when he gets hungry, if there is food, he eats. If there is something sweet, he eats it at all costs because it is a natural jackpot, something found very rarely. To wild tribes in the Amazon and Africa, honey is the best thing a man can possess, happiness in a sticky, sweet form. Over time, man fenced off his environment more and more, separating himself from the dangers of nature to conserve energy. He began cultivating crops to have them at hand and built his comfort throughout history. A monkey with a brain and a mindset calibrated for danger and scarcity leaped from insecurity into security, into modern civilization. We have everything we want. Most of us live better than ancient kings. We have running water, royal chambers, comfortable beds, delicious food and abundance, access to information, and most of us get caught in a fatal cycle of suffocating in these delights. We overeat, we over-entertain ourselves on social media, and, alone with ourselves, we do it so much we cannot stop. We have limited ourselves in the search for unlimited happiness. A sad picture of modern society. However, once a man digs himself out of that, because it is possible and desirable, he falls into another problem. This happened to me. What problem? Well, I became obsessed with the other extreme, productivity. I caught myself assigning productive tasks, learning a new language on Duolingo, looking for a job, writing a gratitude journal, exercising every day for both strength and cardio, meditating every day, praying the 5 daily prayers, finishing college obligations, helping my parents around the house and yard. But still, something is missing. I feel a void despite all of that. Why? I have no idea. Precisely because man, if we reduce him to the body and material existence, is the monkey I mentioned earlier. A monkey with a brain and mindset calibrated for danger and scarcity jumped from insecurity into security, into modern civilization. All those good and praiseworthy habits do not strike the deeper chord of his being. I filled my days with good habits, but the void remains because I am not a machine that completes tasks. I am, as I said earlier, a witness. It is good to be productive, active, to work on oneself, but if that becomes the meaning, it loses meaning. Man was not created to work like a machine. As the saying goes, he is a human being, not a human doing. According to the Old Testament, God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And if he created us in his image, we too are those who are. Everything else is an illusion of our ego, layers, and excess. However, we are beneath God, and I am not one of those New Age promoters who say that everyone is a god, a creator of their own destiny. I still believe that he who is holds all the strings, but we are the ones who are, just at the end of those strings. We operate within God's system, the Sunnetullah, the path through the river of crocodiles. Man, I see in Fight Club the strongest and smartest men who have ever lived. I see all this potential and I see squandering. God damn it, an entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables, slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man, no purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war's a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't, and we're slowly learning that fact, and we're very, very pissed off. Tyler Durden, Fight Club. I first read this quote in the book, Hard Times Create Strong Men by Stefan Arnio, and it prompted me to think. We truly live in times that have never been better if we look globally. Never have fewer wars been fought. Never has food been more accessible. We have access to all information, but still, something isn't right. We feel trapped because we are trapped. Multi-million-dollar corporations have led us to voluntarily agree to be slaves in the system, and we are all slowly becoming aware of it. But being a slave in the system doesn't mean we have to lose our freedom. What do I mean? We need to start with the definition of freedom itself. Freedom is defined as the right to do, think, and say what we want. This leads us to desire. Nietzsche said, "Man would rather will nothingness than not will." This means that man has such a deep need for purpose, meaning, and will that even a self-destructive desire, a desire for nothingness, for suffering, for destruction, even a desire not to be successful, will be more acceptable than total emptiness, meaninglessness, apathy. In other words, it is better to have some will, even if destructive, than to be without any will at all. But still, man's will is the will at the bottom of the string and God's is at the top. God controls everything, and man can only achieve contentment if his will aligns with his will. Otherwise, only what he does not want to happen will happen to him, and he will be unhappy. Let's go back to that freedom. Do I have the freedom not to be in the system, to go to a field and sow, eat what I grow, and drink water from a well? I do. Do I want that? No. Then why do I feel like a slave? The answer is clear. Because I allowed myself to be enslaved to a system, a job, a career, money, status, cars, a larger group like a nation, religion with a small r, faith with a small f, a sect. A great man once said, "Your God is whatever you are obsessed with, whatever you think about for the greater part of the day." And I placed an idol beside God and simply feel like a slave. Only serving him is what truly liberates, and then I do what I want because he wants it. I think what I want because he wants it. I speak what I wish because he wishes it. And I am what I am because he is the one who is through me. I am not a god, but I am his manifestation in that way. Thus, I swim through a river full of crocodiles unnoticed, because he is the one guiding the crocodiles. I live peacefully with his decree because I am in his kingdom. That path is the only path worth walking, because we are not programmed to find happiness in any other way in this world full of chaos, especially as young, inexperienced people. Rebellion and resentment against the existing system arise easily, but cutting off the Hydra's head isn't the solution because, after a while, a new system is born. One must learn to be free within the system, to be a servant, yet to be a master. And being a master of oneself is only achieved in prostration, sujud, to the master of all. Idols of dust. It is hard to talk about this with people who are supporting characters in their own lives, who have subordinated themselves to something higher than themselves, some superego. Just as the ego is an illusion of the soul, layers that have formed a distorted imaginary image of the individual, so too are imaginary formations formed like nations, membership in a certain club, tribes, Samsung vs iPhone, Adidas vs Nike. Indeed, there are very, very many divisions. Loyalty to something that, in reality, does not exist. Such people found the purpose of their sacred existence in external idols. I was recently astonished to learn that huge sums of money are paid to support one's favorite football club. It seems that the most important secondary thing in the world stops being so secondary and becomes increasingly important in the lives of people who have ceased searching for meaning and found it in the illusion of a superego. There are many such people, and such people are my friends. God forbid I say I am better than them in any way, but it hurts me when they attach such importance to something men created with their own hands. The idol is carved, and over coffee with friends, if you, dear reader, are anything like me, you very often feel lonely for this reason. You want to say so much to be heard, not so much to be heard as to be understood, but how can they understand you when you don't understand yourself? So many self-sown ideas and ideas planted by you or someone else in your mental garden, too young to bear fruit, yet too old to ignore. You feel that if you tried to write them down, they would grow, absorb water, and bear fruit. But every birth is painful, so perhaps it is meant to feel this way. I don't know anything anymore myself, that's why I stay silent. To whom should I speak when I cannot articulate everything I want? Maybe time will tell, but sometimes silence is necessary. Give yourself time, give your being time to digest these ideas, to arrive at something. Be receptive to God's signs, listen, shut up and listen, listen and obey. Remember that He controls everything, even your thoughts. If you think otherwise, try not to think of a pink elephant, you know the drill. Your thoughts are not yours, let them go. Let ideas grow, be silent and water them if they are not yet ripe for fruitful discourse. Maybe it just isn't their season. Silence is golden. And company does not necessarily mean friendship. Seneca spoke in his letters about how a man should not hesitate to speak with friends, how we shouldn't hide our philosophical views, but when not everyone quite understands, it is hard. I am not saying that I am the one who walked out of Plato's cave to see reality, but I am aware of it. I know there is a fabric of space and time that I do not see with my eyes, from which I myself am tailored, and may the exalted be the tailor. All glory to him. Dawning without a mask. When I write different, I don't mean all of us, because we are all different, but the few of us who do not totally fit into today's society, even though we are forced to fit in. The few of us who have seriously considered living out the rest of our lives in some hut with our sheep, who yearn for a true connection with nature and like-minded people. I know there are more of us, and I know we are not alone. Us whom piles of money, sports cars, watching sports and cheering for clubs, women and a dissolute life, gambling, false religions and gods, and belonging to groups that are superegos in their own sense, do not make happy. Different in the sense that we want to have a quiet life, without excess and without scarcity. Do we want this world? Yes, we want to have a family, friends, enough money, a roof over our heads, a happy family, but we haven't been caught in that race for success, but rather in a search for meaning. We value honesty and truth. We prefer stability over grandiosity. This approach, however, will leave us lonely in today's society because we won't be able to fully understand the majority of the herd, yet we will be forced to. We will partially agree with some more than others, but it stops there. The key is to understand ourselves through introspection, writing, and thinking, but that is hard, so we check out with distractions. But if we sat down and stared at a wall, contemplated as they say, we would surely arrive at something that isn't found on, insert your arbitrary distraction here. I came to the conclusion that we have no other choice but to be an ordinary human with people, to be an ordinary human with ourselves, and to swim through life whatever comes our way. After all, we were born with a reason to be in every moment, to be the one who is the witness. That is, so far, the most suitable way for me to deal with being. To be the best possible son to my parents, a caring boyfriend to my girlfriend, a sincere friend to my circle, a helpful colleague to my coworkers, and with myself at the end of the day when I show the bill clean. Before God in prostration, there is no I, only Him, to be the one who is with Him. Then we are not different, then we are all the same. The only thing distinguishing us from others is the illusion, the ego. When it dies, and that happens in moments, then we are at peace. Part 2. Tools and internal dynamics. The value of an introspective life. How does a man think he can be happy if he isn't aware of himself? Or at least doesn't even try to be, if he doesn't peek into his skull a little and look at what he views the world through, his brain. Introspection is the conscious and honest observation of one's own thoughts, feelings, and actions for the sake of self-understanding and personal growth. This makes it easier for me to notice and not just be a horse ridden by thoughts, feelings, impulses, and desires over which I have no control, but for me to be the rider. But not me as my conception of myself, but the real person, the soul, that witness. Precisely this helps me be more aware of myself and my needs, goals, and final destination. Why do I need this? Because it is dangerous to drive a car without knowing if it takes petrol or diesel. It is dangerous to set off on a journey without where am I going? Hence introspection. One needs to sit down and ask oneself, what does this car of mine run on? What does this horse of mine like to eat? Where are we going? Why does this or that motivate me? Why am I the way I am? Can I change? Life becomes easier then. Make it easier for yourself, I tell myself, and now I tell you who are reading. When the soul leads and urges are silent. We have all heard the one. Inside you, there are two wolves fighting. Which one wins depends on which one you feed. The wolf represents the part of the personality that needs to be sacrificed or trained, and such subpersonalities constantly conduct a dialogue with other subpersonalities. Subpersonality 1, voice of conscience, says, you know it's right to admit the mistake. You won't be able to sleep peacefully if you stay silent. That isn't you. Subpersonality 2, voice of impulse or shadow, says, oh, let it go, no one will even notice. Save yourself. What do you get out of being honest? The world isn't honest with you. Subpersonality 1 says, but I don't live by the world's rules, but by my values. Truth hurts, but sin corrodes even more. Subpersonality 2 says, values don't feed you. People trample you when you're good. Sometimes you have to be selfish to survive. Silence, internal tension, the decision has not yet fallen. Because of this, it is necessary to become aware of this conversation, even though we often aren't, because it happens in all of us. And choosing the deserving winner in such situations is easy, provided we have previously formed our identity, if we have sat down and stared at a wall and written about our values. That is where the key decision lies, niyyah, intention. To consciously decide what I want to be instead of it spontaneously happening to me like an NPC. When I form my values, I have fed the good wolf. When I act according to those values, I have allowed the wolf that opposes those values to be sacrificed. You understand my point. Therefore, the next time you are in a position to make a decision, filter the situation through the values you have previously meditated on, and the decision will be crystal clear. You won't waste energy contemplating, and you will act according to your values, and I deeply recommend that those values be in accordance with Allah's law. How we shape identities and why we wander. I think identities mean nothing. The labels we put on ourselves and others make no sense because they are not permanent. People change constantly. It can be said that I am a member of some group like a state, nation, or religion, but that doesn't mean the place where I was born or the faith I belong to. is something that defines me because I remain me even if that changes, should it change. My identity is simply something I learn to do and to behave in a certain way because it works for me in certain circumstances. But if the circumstances were different, I would behave differently and have a different identity. So it means nothing. It is just a program I let my being run on. A frequent phenomenon is that people stick to one of these false identities and behave that way at all costs. If we tell ourselves, I am a smoker, it is inevitable that we will behave that way, lighting one after another. If we tell ourselves, I am resourceful, we will do things that prove to us that we are resourceful. That is why affirmations are powerful. If we actually convince ourselves of the program by which we will act, we create our identity from scratch and become who we want to be. But here, faith plays a key role, saying it isn't enough. And beside faith, there is action. So the key is truth, believing in the truth, because then you desire what you believe. Everyone wants to believe in the truth. Then you think what you desire, say what you think, do what you say, and convince yourself of that truth even more. You form the program yourself. You tailor your identity yourself instead of having it imposed on you as something out of your power. That is the recipe for making a desired identity. One aspect at a time, one truth at a time. Allah says, be. And it is. Therefore, it is necessary to trust Him and strive for us to be what we say, not to lie to others and ourselves, because what happens if we lie? To avoid a certain unwanted situation, but God puts us in those situations to steer our life in a certain direction, and if you lie, you deviate from that. If you speak the truth, the outcome could be much better if you only trust God, thus we can lie to ourselves. We must wear, as I like to call it, an honest lens, one that does not distort reality, neither pink glasses nor dark, sad ones. Seek the middle ground. Most people tend to put on black or pink glasses because it seems easier to live in the lie that the world is cruel, so they turned out as good as they could have, or that the world is so wonderful, deluding themselves with music, sports, video games, or social media. Things should be observed as they are because that makes it easier for us to form our identity according to the truth. The story of the Stoics, the philosophy of calmness. Recently, I discovered Stoic philosophy. I must say it helped me a great deal and came at just the right moment. We all think a Stoic means someone cold-blooded, firm against the storm like a rock, unwavering. There is truth in that too, but for me, after researching these wonderful people and reading a few books, 3 stood out. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. These are 3 different personalities, connected by a single thread that distinguished them to a very high degree for me and many others. Why? Because they wrote about wavering thoughts and waging war with the mind, about what is external and what is internal, what we should value and what we shouldn't, and why, in a very pragmatic way. They spoke of us as insignificant and at the same time as significant, which forced me to connect it with Rumi's saying, "You are not just a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop." However insignificant we may be, paradoxically, we are just as significant because we are part of that ocean in whose image we were created as a fractal. They spoke about cognitive distancing. It is not events that sadden or gladden you, but precisely your judgment of those events. If we do not take a side, if we do not assign a label to the event, it has no influence on us, stuck in traffic. Okay, is that good or bad? Honestly, I don't know. But if I assign a label to that event, it's terrible that I'm stuck in traffic because I'll be late for this and that, because I'll lose something. That is where the problem arises. It is a coin with 2 sides. Heads is a catastrophe, tails is a blessing. Either it is terrible that I was late, or it is excellent, because if I had been at that intersection at 7:45 instead of 8 o'clock, I would have had an accident. We truly do not know and have no clue, and this analogy can be applied to everything in life. So let us not pass judgment immediately. The second thing I learned from these wonderful people is that I must divide things into external and internal, those under my control and those out of my control. Am I anxious? Okay, why? Can I do something about it? No, then I have no reason to be anxious because it is not under my control. Can I? Then I will do it regardless. I have no need to be worried then. And if I am still worried, it means I have tied my happiness to external things. For example, I am giving a presentation I have prepared enough for. I know the topic and have learned everything well. I know how to express myself and convey the main ideas. If I am nervous and anxious, it means I have tied my success to how the listeners will receive me, whether they will like what I say. Those are external things, they are irrelevant. Epictetus goes so far as to consider even the body irrelevant, for as he says, if you value the body so much, you will submit to the will of anyone physically stronger than you. These things resonate with me, and I connect them with the concept of idolatry. This stands in the Quran as well. In the Quran, idolatry does not refer only to statues of stone and wood, but to every phenomenon to which absolute obedience, love, fear, or legislative power is given besides Allah, whether it be passion and ego, human authorities and tradition, wealth, children, and worldly status, or even emotional attachment that becomes equal to Allah's, whereby the Quran clearly states that an idol is not that before which one prostrates, but that to which man essentially submits. Therefore, all irrelevant, external things are idols if we equate them with God. And the only way to be happy is submission to God, surrender, for our will to align with His. You will only be happy if you want only what God wants, and if you do not want anything He does not want. This is hard to achieve, but it is the key to happiness. Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. Enchiridion 8. In Discourses Book 2, Chapter 23, Epictetus speaks of aligning human will with divine will and presents the idea that if you want only what God wants, no one can stand in your way because no one can prevent God. So being happy does not mean imposing one's will on God, being dissatisfied or satisfied only if things happen as we imagined or if they don't go according to plan. Happiness comes in submissiveness to His decision. That is the meaning of Islam itself. To surrender, to be at peace, to die. To kill one's ego, to die before earthly death, and to be peace. I don't know how to achieve this in this madhouse myself, but I know one thing I must. Working on oneself and one's surroundings without attachment to the result. I know I said earlier that the purpose of life isn't endlessly checking off tasks and filling the day and running after obligations to solve problems, but it is a fact that we are human beings who must deal with existence on earth. We must work both inside ourselves and outside ourselves, as within, so without. Of course, the purpose isn't just one or the other, but they go hand in hand, and there is simply no other way. The main challenge is not to place a goal or task or obligation above God in the sense of obsession, but to work on it conscientiously and consciously without being burdened by the outcome, because that is not our decision, but His. Through various daily tasks, I notice that I finish far more if I am guided by a disciplined approach rather than waiting for motivation. For motivation, I need a motive which very often isn't there, or the will to work simply runs out. The word discipline comes from Latin, meaning knowledge or instruction. We instruct the brain to act according to instruction, not the impulse of motive, and as a result, we become more productive. I think this is especially important in male psychology, to separate ourselves from boyish views of the world that seek fun in everything because fun is actually often destructive. Discipline is fun. I notice that at least in myself, through filling time in a conscious way, working on myself internally and externally, holistically, what I think, what I eat, what I read, what I follow, what I want. If I align that with the values God commands and work on it, I feel very good. I said we aren't human doings but human beings, but we must work to be. Here I would mention Marcus Aurelius and what he said in Meditations, his internal conversation. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for? The things I was brought into the world to do, or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm, but it's nicer here, so you were born to feel nice. Instead of doing things and experiencing them, don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants and spiders and bees going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order as best they can, and you're not willing to do your job as a human being? Why aren't you running to do what your nature demands? But we have to sleep sometime, agreed, but nature set a limit on that as it did on eating and drinking, and you're over the limit. You've had more than enough of that, but not of working, there you're still below your quota. You don't love yourself enough, or you'd love your nature too and what it demands of you. This passage often comes to my mind and reminds me of that internal struggle with myself. It shows how man is of that dual nature, primal monkey and transcendental. But here is the beauty in it. When I am aware of my transcendental nature, I work according to natural law, as Aurelius would say. I work according to Sunnetullah, God's system, and I feel, even with the monkey part, happy and satisfied. So it is a win-win situation. God arranged it that way, and his system suits us best, however much the monkey in us rebels and complains. Hedonism is not the path, discipline is. The obstacle is the way, the ego is the enemy, as Ryan Holiday would say. On love, struggle, and what binds us. Whoever is near us we see best. Whoever is near us sees us best. My parents are wonderful parents. They gave themselves, and even too much, for me, taught me everything the best they knew, enabled a beautiful life for me, and instilled the right values in me. They enjoyed my happiness, but sometimes they made mistakes for which I would be rude to blame or judge them. I realize they won't live forever because no one will, and I admit to myself that I am not yet ready to lose them, and when I think about it, sadness tightens my throat because I am not conscious of that at every moment. Often the torrent of everyday life carries us in the direction of arguing, fighting, or bickering, because we are human. Yes, it happens to everyone, but here I want to open my heart and admit to them and pay tribute, because they are two incredible human beings, insan, who have shown their resilience a million times. They had a hard childhood interwoven with the obligations of that difficult communist system in Yugoslavia, where they achieved excellent success in schools and the standard of learning was stricter then than now. And besides that, they worked hard jobs around the house and in the fields. Dad especially, because he lived in a village. They went through the war in Bosnia in the 90s. Mom was in Sarajevo under shells for 5 years, Dad on the front line with a rifle in the vicinity of Breza. They lost their youth that way and their nerves, and gave a huge sacrifice. After the war, they got employed and started working. That's where they met, at work, at school, Dad as a high school professor and Mom as a teacher. They started a family and began fighting the next problem, community. That community is a strange thing, archaic and outdated. Before, people worked much more and had larger families with closer relationships, but certain cunning women and men can abuse that for power, and when a new woman comes into such a community, they demand she submit to them. My mom didn't want that and refused everything. She started a revolution, so to speak. She built everything from the ground up again. From a house, she and Dad made a home, but not someone else's home. The communities, some big family where everyone had a say, but a home where only she and Dad decided. She freed herself from those shackles and did it nobly, not to take power herself, but to keep integrity. My mother is a fighter. My dad is a quiet man who knows how to do whatever he touches and tried to fulfill every wish of Mom's and mine as a child. He always put himself last, and I assume he found happiness in our happiness, in a paternally reserved and slightly rough way, with rougher jokes but a heart full of love. I agree with him almost always, while I often know how to argue with Mom. However, that is supposedly necessary for me to grow, to learn that I must not argue with women, only show love in those situations. That is something I am still learning and fighting within myself, because my boyish energy seeks argument and proving, while my masculine energy seeks peace, tranquility, love, integrity, and gratitude. God is my witness how many times I rush into stupidity, but at least I am aware of them. The fight with oneself is inevitable. On boundaries, community, and the unity of man. Man is a social being, and even though he is such, he is often viewed as an individual separate. Since ancient times, people lived in primitive communities and tribes, small villages. I think I read in The Way of Men by Jack Donovan that the strongest connections between people are established in groups of about 15 to 20 people. Strictly speaking, that's how we are programmed. Such were the communities before in the villages where I grew up, and that dynamic began to change with the generational shift before my birth. People formed tight family ties, almost tribal. Brothers built houses close to each other and did everything together. In my opinion, that is a superior organization because they are in the same context, raised the same, believe the same, and work the same, so the chances of anything being abused are very small and nothing from the outside can destroy them. But it can from the inside. A desire for control and power appears, violating others' rights to choice, privacy, or will to achieve a goal, which is naturally okay when it concerns a higher goal of the community. But when it starts to crumble, it is only natural that certain groups step out of it. That happened with Yugoslavia. That happened with the community of my father's family. As without, so within, as above, so below, this happens when we think on an earthly, worldly, and logically familiar level and operate with the ego in focus. Borders exist there because we are condemned to live in that illusion that we are not all the same being, sharing the same humanity. And we all need each other, and that was clear to us during the COVID-19 pandemic. We are essential to each other to function, however much we disagree and however much we do not think alike. Of course, there are all kinds of people, and we are in a constant state of friction with them, but we have no other choice. We are shackled in a body, and ours is to be the best possible monkey with a primitive understanding of the universe, and to behave like a social being. To bear witness to that as a witness who is. However, we are all part of one family. No one forced us to be born, even though sometimes it seems that way. Life is our choice, because of who knows what we knew in the other world, a unique opportunity to play in a simulation like The Sims. But not without a goal, because Allah does not play and that does not befit him. This life is a chance. But on the other hand, we cannot do without others. Until paradise, we need each other in this world, dunya, we are programmed that way. Between us, borders exist just as much as they do not exist. God made the Drina River flow, and two brothers divided the land left and right of it, imaginarily. There are no borders in the world, the earth is God's. People imaginarily set borders, customs, etc. But the earth is one, indivisible except in our heads. In the same way, we have set borders with each other. I am me, you are you, he is he. But we are all part of one soul, one being, one existence, and of the one who is. I said we are not all gods, but we all are at the end of the string of the one who is. In that sense, there are no divisions in creation. We all drink from the same source, and on that level of thinking, it is foolish to divide. This all sounds confusing, but that is man's curse. To know at the same time that he is everything and that he is separate, alone for himself. On one level, I am a being acting itself out, which came from the desire to know itself. And on another level, I am a monkey with intelligence and fancy toys I made for myself to delude myself with. On one hand, everyone is one to me, on the other I am just one. On one side is selfishness, on the other love, on one I am free, and on the other an egoist, on one side I am a particle and on the other a wave. I guess that's how it should be. Part 3. Search for the spiritual compass. The image the eye does not see. People usually close their eyes when they pray to God, regardless of which culture they come from. Why? Because God is approached internally, not externally. He left us a little window through which his light enters, and that window is inside, within us, and we see it only when we look into ourselves. We all have the same God, yes, but we do not all see him the same way because we look from different perspectives. From different angles, we see his different divine attributes shining through those windows in our souls. But the fact is that everyone is supplied with the potential to close the outer blinds and open the inner window, clean it, and watch the most beautiful landscape, to watch what the eye has not seen. We are in the dark only if we pull the blinds, if we reject God. And the earth will keep turning whatever we do. By looking into ourselves, we see an image of ourselves that we hide from others. Before ourselves, we are as no one knows us, there is no hiding. Before ourselves, we are naked and barefoot, and often we dare not do that. We are afraid, so we suffocate in endless entertaining activities like scrolling, reading, music. We behave obsessively toward work and put trash on a pedestal. Only God may be at the top in our beings so that our path may be illuminated, and to do that, we must be aware of our spiritual nudity. Remove all layers of stupidity and others' indoctrinations and seek meaning. Maybe then the picture will be clearer. Maybe the meaning is within reach. When the mishmash of thoughts settles and calms down, I often wonder where this or that thought comes from. Can I say I know anything at all? Probably not. I am confused because when I don't follow anyone's example, I realized that actually I have no original thoughts of my own. I heard everything somewhere, read it, saw it from someone, adopted some already existing concept, and I am afraid to take it all off because what then? How to leave everything? I don't know if I dare let go. If I let go, then I dissolve into waves, into the atmosphere. There is no me then. There is no ego, there are no ideas of mine, there are only ideas. That is the meaning, to kill the ego. To break the hologram of walls around me, and only then can I be free. No, only then can I be. And when I am, then I am the one who is, his manifestation in me that has been waiting to be known all this time, to know itself. The difference between religiosity and spirituality. With us, people are mostly religious, which in my view means following the beaten path of ancestors. Spirituality is more personal and deeper, connected to the person, the real person, the spirit. One can be religious one's whole life without spirituality, and one can be spiritual without religiosity. The prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, rejected the beaten path of his ancestors and set off alone on a path of spirituality. He contemplated. He saw the sun, the moon, and thought, are these gods? Then he realized they disappear. Thinking, he came to the conclusion that there must be something that caused everything, and since everything is so complex and design is visible, that confirms a designer. That is spirituality, seeking the designer. A man can be religious and spiritual if he does not blindly follow religion, but truly contemplates and follows, analyzes and tests proofs, seeks God and himself in his context, just like Abraham, peace be upon him. That is the faith of Abraham, not just monotheism, but the active rejection of other gods, whatever they might be in our lives. Constantly analyzing ourselves, we can come to the conclusion that we are programmed by everything in our life and experience so far, which means various idols in different forms have infiltrated our hearts, and we must smash them. Until it remains empty, because only an empty bowl is useful, as Eastern philosophers said, that is spirituality. Emptiness full of itself, intangibility, untouchability, potential. When we leave everything we know outside ourselves and fill ourselves with self or the one who is, then we are spiritual. That is what Abraham and Muhammad, peace be upon them, did, and we follow them. Therefore, that responsibility toward ourselves lies on us too. Every man has his path to truth and light. We are all calibrated for good. Each of us was born with an inner compass pointing to the right path, but precisely what drives us off that path is Satan's lie. He lies to us about everything and chooses no means. He uses deceptions we must be wary of, and we must recalibrate that inner compass from time to time. I already spoke about how everyone has a unique representation of God from their own angle, and it is impossible to encompass him with our limited brain. That is why it is easy to deceive us, to present God as different than he is, to present man only as an animal having exclusively a physical material form, and to present Satan not as a caricature of an experienced enemy, which he is, but as a funny, cute character with little horns who whispers lies to us and farts when he hears the call to prayer. Unfortunately, he uses precisely such tricks of deception to confuse our inner compass and insert some false idol into the center, where the needle will turn. For a guiding star, we place our ego, which is an illusion. We place money, career, women, or something else. Insert your obsession here. We put God in the background, and that is why we wander. It is necessary to recalibrate that inner compass, and luckily, life came with an instruction manual, the Quran. We must align our values with Quranic wisdoms and place God in the center to which our compass will turn. That is the feeling from the inside. The factual state is that no one was born the same and no one has the same circumstances, and if we are going toward God, toward the top of the mountain, we must all go by different paths. It is arrogant of me to believe that only I am right, that only I know the path because I don't, but likewise, I believe the right path is not one. Everyone has their right path, their Surat al-Mustaqim. Everyone has their perspective of the Quran and God, and different verses will echo in everyone's ears. The key is to surrender to him who created all the stars and let him give us the one that is the guide. And if we hold rigidly to form, it means we lack flexibility. We have made the mind into a limited box, which it is, But we do not want to throw out some ideas and put in others, but hold firmly to what we think we know so we don't lose the ground beneath our feet, because that is scary. That is why one needs to relax, follow the feeling from inside. It is impossible to preemptively imagine every scenario in life. Sometimes it must be momentous, which requires a previously calibrated compass with an aligned center and in accordance with Quranic values from our perspective. That is how I currently think, and I don't claim to know everything, but I want everyone to use their own head and think. Prepare the compass, yes, and let that feeling from inside lead us, and not fall into the trap of believing we are on the right path if we persistently see stop signs, and if our subconscious screams to slow down, we must listen to it. That is faith without form. Everyone follows their path because everyone is responsible only for themselves. There is no compulsion in religion. The well within us, the path to the source of truth. When you listen to it, even silence somehow sounds, you hear a buzzing, and then that buzzing slowly turns into roaring, murmuring, springing forth. From you, a spring of conscience starts to well up. You start telling yourself what you never did, what you suppressed. If you suppressed enough, a geyser might burst. You might start crying, sobbing. You realize truth cannot be hidden, nor buried within oneself by layers of ego trying to build walls around you hiding the truth. You realize you must dig deep into yourself and bring everything out into the open before yourself, and you get to work, you dig. But with what to compare what you dig up? How to know it is the truth? Well, filter it through the Quran, through what God tells you. After some time, when you have acquired this practice, when you have dug everything possible out of yourself, a hollow will remain in you. You will realize that everything you thought was you is an illusion. A hollow remains, looking like a well empty. You realize you are a medium, you are a vessel holding the essence, and that actually Allah acts through you. Your will does not exist, only His. You only realize that will, you only water from that source you give, you water people, birds, plants, and the more you spend yourself, the more you fill up. Such is the paradox of this existence, such depth is in us. Our hearts have become buried wells. Let us clean them, for Allah loves those who clean themselves much. Nature, mirror of spiritual truth. Can you find yourself here? I am just an ordinary guy. I get up as I should, work as they say, don't make waves. I don't think too much because thoughts can hurt and I like for nothing to hurt. My day goes by a template, like a commercial playing on loop. Coffee, work, key in the lock, pedal to the metal, then back home. It's Saturday and that's enough for me to be happy. I don't ask what's behind this. What do I need that for? Someone figured it out long ago, wrote it, explained it. I watch the news, scroll TikTok and know what I need to know. When I turn off the screen, no questions, just silence. Good, warm silence. Sometimes I pass by the place where we played once when we were kids. Today there is no noise there, only the light of screens. I tell myself that's normal, everything changes. And I don't linger long because tomorrow I have to get up again. I steal days from God but feel no guilt. I have no plan, no goal, no need to be more than this. My world is small but known. I don't seek the truth because truth requires you to wake up. And I am quite fine like this to last, to pass and not wonder too much. If the answer is yes, I want you to open the window. Smell the pollution and smog, smell the stale scent of the swamp and your rotten boat that stopped rocking on it long ago. Smell how everything you are used to stinks. Drink a glass of water, put on sneakers and go just walk. Lock the house and walk. Even if you don't feel like it, walk. Where? High up. Walk until you reach a hill, just walk and head toward the peak. You have no wings, only legs, and not four like agile beasts but two like the wretch you are, a human. Walk until you spot the blue sky, until the smog starts clearing, until the air starts becoming fresher and lighter for the lungs, until you stop hearing cars and noise and hear birds and wind instead. Walk as far as your legs carry you, and when you want to stop, walk. Soon all the smog will clear and you will see one mountain peak, not two or three, one is the highest. Walk toward him. The smog disappears, birds sing louder, the wind fans the fire in you, and the river roars mightily. Do you feel at one with that story? A little more. Walk. Look back for a moment, see where you were. You will see a sea of toxic gases and poisonous clouds hovering over humanity and it, sadly unconscious in its world, without looking at the stars, without sun and moon. They're where you were until recently. Walk toward the peak by the shortest path, the steepest one. That is the true path. If you can, run and flee from that suffocation below, melt into nature, be the old hard oak, be the murmur of a cheerful brook, be the proud pine on the cliff, be the falcon with spread wings and rise into the heights. Before you realize, you will see you aren't walking but flying. You will see there is no more you, only nature, a mirror of you. You are everything. And when you realize that, return to the swamp, return to the smog, but be aware that you are something much more. We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. Fusilat 53, nature is full of such signs, only who wants to read it. And we have certainly made the Quran easy for remembrance, so is there any who will remember? Al-Qamar 17. Part 4, Truth and Divine Law. Between perception and truth. Truth is objective, and I as a subject will never be able to reach it as long as I am a subject, as long as I have an ego and an I. As long as I perceive something, I must know that it is so from my point of view, and from another it is different. On the hill there is snow only on the northern side in spring. When looked at from the south, the hill is green. I see things this way or that way, only from a helicopter do I see the true picture. Only when I fly with wings above the hill do I see that half is white, half green. But then I am no longer a human, then I am an angel, then I transcend the human and physics, I go into metaphysics. I am very limited like this, both by body and mind. The brain cannot encompass the concept of eternity or imagine a color that doesn't exist. The body cannot fly. Matter decays. What remains? I often ask myself what remains when I disappear. Holy books explained it to us metaphorically in a certain way, like heaven and hell, rivers of milk and honey and fire. But what does that mean to us? Those comparisons are just a warning to the body, comprehensible to a limited mind, like when a mom tells a child, "Don't touch the socket, ouch ouch." God isn't limited for not explaining it to us, we are, and as long as we exist there is no truth. We cannot understand it precisely for that reason. Only when we disappear does truth prevail. God said in the Quran, "My Lord, cause me to enter a sound entrance and to exit a sound exit, and grant me from yourself a supporting authority, and say, truth has come, and falsehood has departed. Indeed is falsehood by nature ever bound to depart." Al-Isra 80:81. We enter this world with truth. While we have an ego, we lie to ourselves because the ego itself is an illusion. When the ego goes, the Lord leads us out with the outcome of truth. The ego is a lie, and that is why it vanishes, and when the ego vanishes, truth remains. Truth as a process, not a goal. I already thought about how truth is only objective, and that man, as long as he has an ego and is a subject, cannot see the real truth. That is why we say everyone has their own truth. Plato said that no soul is deprived of truth except against its will. It is hard to say what truth is at all. In a conversation between two men about the color of grapes on the vine, one will say, "What a wonderful color, it is ready for harvest." The other will say, "Not yet, it needs a few more days." How to know who is right? In this case, it is easy. Collect every single bunch, every berry, squeeze a drop of juice onto a refractometer, record the value of Brix degrees, and find the mean value. Then we know the truth objectively, but in the process, we destroyed everything if the second one is right, that he said was unripe. Of course, we can approach the search for truth statistically, inferring inductively with a random representative sample of, say, 50 berries, but that won't give us 100% truth. But in this example, it is easy to determine what the truth is because it is known what is being measured specifically. But what if two men are talking about something for which neither has the ability to judge? They don't have such a sense. They don't have an instrument to help them measure. What do they have? How to know who is right when speaking about tricky topics? The answer is clear. As long as there is no instrument, one cannot arrive at the truth. Logic helps here partially, because it can help as an instrument. But how to get to the truth if something needs to be measured that the human brain cannot comprehend at all? We will all say, having a brain, that murder is bad. But what if murdering someone reverses the timeline and stops the death of millions? What if someone killed the cause of a genocide? Because of that, one should never jump to conclusions, simply because we don't know. We know statistically that most people are not causes of genocide, thieves, usurers, and similar, so we conclude that every murder is bad. And it is bad when we speak from the level of a brain that is limited. But what when a being who has knowledge of absolutely everything, who is the pure absolute, decides that something happens? You did not kill them, but Allah killed them. And you threw not when you threw, but it was Allah who threw that he might test the believers with a good test. Indeed, Allah is hearing and knowing. Chapter 8, verse 17. Here we return to his will, and that nothing happens by accident, and everything that happens is under the encompassment of his will. If things are not to our will, it means we have imposed pressure on ourselves to operate from the illusion of the ego, which is a rival to God because their wills do not align. But even I myself am far from that. It is not easy to die before death. The Jews were commanded to surrender only to him, but it wasn't to their will, so they made themselves a god that was to their will. That is why the Lord told them to kill their ego in chapter 2, verse 54. And when Moses said to his people, "O my people, indeed you have wronged yourselves by your taking of the calf for worship. So repent to your Creator and kill yourselves. That is best for all of you in the sight of your Creator." Then he accepted your repentance. Indeed, he is the accepting of repentance, the merciful. In short, one can arrive at a truth with the ego, but one can arrive at the truth only without the ego. But the ego has layers, elusive ones. Whenever we think we have caught it, it changes shape into something we would call self-righteous in English. Like, how well I understood it, how I killed my ego, I am a real Buddha, I am so enlightened. It became elusive again there. How to kill it, I don't know. That is the process of arriving at the truth, which I still have to discover myself, and when I arrive at it, it won't matter who arrived at the truth because there will be no one. There will only be him. What does it mean today to hold a moral compass? Towards what to turn one's magnetic needle, what to set as the Qibla, as Epictetus said. As long as we set external things as idols and act dependent on them, we won't be happy. If my happiness depends on how much money I have and whether I have it at all, I have created a problem for myself. I place the body and ego as gods, so if I don't satisfy them, I won't be happy. This is seen very clearly today. A man gets up every morning and goes to a job he despises because he has to. He endures injustice because the bank loan is sacred. He stays in relationships that suffocate him because he fears change. Not because he has no choice, but because comfort has become an idol. When you touch his safety zone, you touch his God. The goal is to strive for objective morality, and here I return to what I said earlier, then I must not be a subject. When I zoom out the focus from myself and switch to the species, I will be happy only if I work on the advancement of my species, the continuation of the species, ensuring a strong social community safe for the birth of new ideas and new people who will contribute to this just like me. And that in a way is striving for objective morality. The closer to objective truth, the more moral, but again, one must kill one's ego, sacrifice oneself in practice. This doesn't look grandiose, it looks banal. Will you throw trash in the river because everyone throws it? Or will you take it with you? Will you lie when you know the lie will never be discovered? Will you stand in defense of the weaker when you know you will lose a benefit because of it? Subjective morality always asks, what do I get out of this? Objective asks, what is right? Even if it is harder for me, we often hear that everything is relative, which is true depending on what is in focus. If we look at the hill above the city, we will say it is big, but if we compare it with the size of the earth, it becomes a grain of dust. To us humans, everything is relative on our level, but we must be aware that there is one objective view, objective morality and objective consciousness from which we sprang. Sprang and then forgot. Relativism today doesn't live in philosophy books but in everyday excuses. It's not exactly black and white. Times are like that. You have to manage. Thus a lie turns into resourcefulness, injustice into normality, cowardice into realism. Relativism isn't depth but an alibi. Holding only to the rules of her, the objective consciousness from which we originated, we can say we are on the path of truth. I think we all must catch that thread within us that connects us. We have that wire that is our link to God, which is, I would say, the pure center of our existence. He says he is closer to us than the jugular vein, so even more central than our being, that initial spark of an idea, the divine particle in us, only it is not subjective in our being. This is seen most clearly in those moments when you do the right thing even though no one sees you and even though there is no reward. There is no euphoria, no applause, but there is peace. The ego has nothing to gain there, but the man knows he was in the right place. That is how I started this book. We are all born pure. Then on that purity, we paste layers of what isn't us, while convincing ourselves at the same time that precisely those layers are us. That is where the problem of relativism arises. This is seen in children. A child instinctively knows what is fair, knows when something is wrong, knows when someone is rough. Then for years they teach him to be silent, to adapt, not to make waves. And one day he grows into a man who no longer knows who he is, but knows how the world functions. Our civilization has a problem, and is sick precisely because almost every individual has identified with their layers, and thus suppressed the glow of that God particle in them. We don't know who we are, and we compare absolutely every situation, opportunity, and event with some manifestation of our layers that we convinced ourselves are us. So we relativize, everyone has their own truth. In practice, this means truth lasts until it hurts, until it demands sacrifice, until it touches self-interest. As soon as it touches, it becomes my truth and your truth. Again I say, this is true if we view man as ego and layers. If we view man through the prism of divine law, everyone does not have their own truth, not because there is no truth, but because there is no everyone. We are all one being shattered into billions of fractals, but of the same essence, and for that essence there is one truth and one moral and one law and one God, the same for all, because all are the same. Allah and Sunnetullah, universal laws of meaning. What does Sunnetullah mean? In 2 words, God system. Mathematics, 2 + 2 = 4. Physics, E = mc squared. If you put your hand in fire, you get burned. Chemistry, biology, and everything on which we as humans have no right to vote, but it just is so. We are only here to choose whether we will operate correctly within that law or swerve, get burned. To him submits whatever is in the heavens and earth, willingly or unwillingly, and to him they will be returned. Surah Ali Imran, 83. So we cannot live outside his law, we only have the right to decide whether it will be willingly or by force. Then he directed himself to the heaven while it was smoke and said to it and to the earth, come into being willingly or by compulsion. They said, we have come willingly. Chapter 41, verse 11. God moves everything, even though at moments it seems we have some free will. That will is again subordinate to his permission. We are nothing. God is actually that unit one, and we are all zeros after the unit. Without him we are zero, with him much infinite. He is the first source, the source and origin of everything, and everything else is his consequence. The meeting of human and divine will. God guides whom he wills. It is written in the Quran. Surah An-Nahl 1693, and if Allah had willed, he could have made you of one religion, but he causes to stray whom he wills and guides whom he wills, and you will surely be questioned about what you used to do. In verse 1693, the word translated as wills is yashaju, derived from the verb shah, meaning to want, to desire, to wish for something to happen. Will is a strange thing. We all think we know what it means to want, but when that word is used in the context of God, everything becomes deeper. In the Quran, we read that Allah guides whom he wills, and the Arabic word for wills, yashu, comes from the root shah, denoting divine intention, decision, desire. But where is man in that? Is he not also given a will? He is. We have freedom to approach the source or to wander away. Allah's will is perfect, all-encompassing and pure. Ours is often mixed with ego, fears, desires, yet precisely that free will gives us the power to draw closer to God, not by force but consciously. When a man chooses to do what is good, to follow the path of justice, sincerity and submission, then those 2 wills align, man's and God's. That unity of wills does not always have to take the form of a religious form. It does not necessarily have to bear a name, label, ritual. Sometimes, what we call faith lives precisely where form is absent, and there begins the search for faith without form, faith that is not framed by regulations, but lived in awareness, in the alignment of wills, in closeness with the Creator, away from his light. And when we do things that are commanded to us, we work according to His will. When it is said, Allah guides whom He wills, I understand that man is again responsible for that because he has free will. He can bow to God's will, but he can also not act so. So if we act as God commands, we work according to His will, and He guides us thus, then the two wills align, our human free one and His divine infinite one. Part 5. The Harbor of Calm Surrender. How gratitude changes our relationship with God and life. Allah said in the Quran that the more I thank Him, the more He gives, and if I become ungrateful, to know that His punishment is severe. This is mentioned in Surah Ibrahim, verse 7. Ungrateful and disbeliever have the same root, kfr. This forces the question, can a believer be ungrateful at all? Did an ungrateful person who claims to believe in God tell the truth? Therefore, to myself first, and then to everyone else, I recommend counting blessings, sitting with oneself, and thanking the Lord for being able to do something today that we take for granted, for example, brushing teeth, bathing, walking, drinking water, and eating, laughing. But one should also give thanks for pain because, as a wise man said, if there were no darkness, we wouldn't know light. One should be grateful. I believe gratitude is an emotion that makes us better. By gratitude, we send a message to God. Miracles happen on that vibration. Another blessing we take for granted is regarding our ignorance of good and bad. We are unable to perceive whether something is good or not, which reminds us of the story of Moses and his teacher. Musa, peace be upon him, traveled seeking knowledge and met a mysterious man, Khidr, who possessed special wisdom from Allah. Musa wanted to learn from him, but Khidr told him he wouldn't be able to have patience for what he sees. They set off on a journey together, and Khidr performed 3 unusual acts. He scuttled a boat belonging to poor people, killed a boy, and repaired a wall in a village that didn't host them. Musa couldn't help but ask why he did that. In the end, Khidr explained to him, the boat was in danger of being taken by a tyrant, the boy would have grown up and become evil to his parents, and the wall was guarding a treasure for orphans until they grew up. By this, he showed that Allah knows the hidden wisdom behind everything. Lesson: never judge what you don't understand. Allah's wisdom is wider than human knowledge, and we are often in the position of Musa, peace be upon him, in our lives. We often consider something bad for us, and it is actually good, and vice versa. That is why one should thank Allah that it is, after all, He who decides and controls everything, because we would truly hurt each other and kill each other if we instantly got what we wanted. It is good to surrender to Allah, relax and row, but row smartly and downstream. Allah will take us where it is best for us, we just need to trust Him. One must believe in Him, but one must also trust Him. Faith without trust is just empty talk. Someone might ask now, how to be grateful for something if we don't know if it is good or bad. That is precisely where trust comes in. Accepting peacefully and with dignity everything that happens is one level, and the second is being grateful for everything that happens because it is from God. As that song says, when the arrow of destiny hits you, take it and kiss it. The one who sends it to you knows what is best for you. When the hand of truth touches you, take it and kiss it. The one who extends those hands knows what is best for you. Didn't Eldon Hussein Begovic sing this wonderfully? One should be grateful for blessings, but also for hardships. I love the prayer. Thank you for every good and for the hardship that brings me closer to you, and save me from every pleasure and difficulty that will distance me from you. And I ask you for every good of which I am in need, without even being aware. Why He sometimes gives us the most when we least expect it. How many times has it happened to me that I desire something intensely, pray for it daily, and it is constantly on my mind. I set that desire as an idol for myself, obsessed with it, I think of nothing else. Like that day after day, thinking how to achieve this and that, until the moment when I stop caring, not stop caring in the sense that I don't want it anymore, I still want it, but I leave the result to God. I stop being obsessed with the desire, I just work, but I make peace with the result. I stop hoping that something will turn out how I want, but simply surrender. And then the result happens. Imagine, for years you try to get a dream job. Every day you look at ads, send applications, constantly talk about it, dream about it. You are so focused that everything else loses color for you. Every rejection breaks you. Every day without an answer looks like ruin. But then, after months of that pressure, one day it just clicks in your head. I will continue to work on myself, send applications, try, but the result is not in my hands. You continue trying, but you no longer check email every 5 minutes. You don't carry that stress with you. You work calmly, learn, go to interviews. And just then, when you have let go, when your heart is calm, just then the call arrives. The job is yours. I also believe this is Allah's law because he constantly warns that people have taken their jobs, children, spouses, wealth, their ego as gods. And in that way, associated partners with God shirk. And Allah, out of immense love, does not want to encourage that cycle of idolatry and success, but gives us success only when we stop idolizing something. That is why he gives to us when we least expect it. That is the formula for success. Sailing without a map. Lately, it is becoming harder for me to say where I am going, not because I don't have opportunities, but because I have too many. When I finish college, before me are not walls but crossroads. Once the path was simple and carved out in advance: school, college, job. Today, everything continues by inertia. Career, marriage, family. I don't run from that, I don't reject it. I just don't know yet where I am in all of that. What is my measure and my purpose? Maybe I will never have a clear picture of my future self. Maybe meaning is not revealed forwards but backwards. What I know is that I want to be good at what I do and righteous in what I am. A good son, husband, father, worker, leader, human, and above all, a good servant of God. How to achieve all that, I don't know the formula. I know only one thing: effort, sincerity, and disbelief in one's own ego. Do not cheat, do not scam, do not run from responsibility. That way I am good to myself too. I am my own only constant companion. The fight with oneself is inevitable. If I have no enemy within, with whom will I fight? Man defends himself mostly from others, but he attacks himself most often, until he realizes that self, as he imagines it, actually doesn't exist. There are only roles, images, beliefs. I play them solidly, sometimes even well. Perfect I am not, and yes, I am lost. I say that without shame. Whoever reads this, let them think what they want. These writings have no structure because currently I don't have one either. I write as it comes. Not because I am careless, but because I don't want to lie. Whoever finds meaning in this, let them take it. Whoever doesn't, let them move on. The only thing that constantly returns to me is gratitude. It is the key. Without it, there is no peace. And without God, to whom to be grateful at all. Even though I am lost, I am grateful to him for what befell me and for what bypassed me. Because precisely that brought me here where I am. I don't have eternity, I have now, and that must be enough. We don't plan as much as we like to think. We are more sailors on a raft than captains of a ship. The sea carries, currents pull, and we resist thinking we have control. Sometimes it is calm, fish come by themselves. Sometimes it is a storm, darkness, and silence, and all that is supposed to be that way. When a sailor returns home, he has something to tell. If the sea were always calm, he would have neither experience nor wisdom. Strange are the Lord's ways. Things I once hated led me to where I needed to be, and not where I thought I wanted to be. This isn't positive thinking. This is trust. Hands tremble for everyone, knees buckle for everyone. Peace comes only when you let go, and now I sail. Around me is fog, I don't know the direction. And I no longer try to invent it. I surrender to the current, but not blindly. I surrender to the one who moves the current. I pray to him that everything that comes to me be good for me, and that I act in a way that he is pleased with. Not by the will of the ego, but by his. The great return. Dissolving into the ocean. We spend our entire lives running a race we never signed up for, clutching tightly to a map drawn by other people. We build fortresses around our egos, layering brick upon brick of professions, names, and hollow identities, terrified that without them, we are nothing. We numb the silence with noise, afraid to look into the mirror because we fear the stranger staring back. But deep down, beneath the anxious, monkey brain, and the relentless pursuit of tomorrow, you have always felt it, that quiet, aching void that no amount of productivity, applause, or worldly pleasure can fill. That void is not an emptiness, it is a calling. The ultimate truth you have been searching for on the mountain peaks and in the pages of books is that you were never the captain of this ship. You are merely the weary sailor fighting the current, bruising your hands against the wheel, thinking you can outsmart the ocean. The exhaustion you feel is the weight of the illusion that you are separate, that you are alone, that you must survive the storm by your own strength. But there is a peace that surpasses all understanding, waiting for you on the other side of surrender. It is the moment you finally stop fighting, the moment you realize that the smog, the chaos, and the noise are just shadows in the valley, while the truth stands eternal, like the mountain, waiting for you to simply look up. It is the realization that your fear of dying, of losing your ego, is the greatest lie of all. The drop of water trembles with the fear of falling into the sea, thinking it is the end. It does not know that the moment it hits the surface, it ceases to be a fragile drop and becomes the mighty, boundless ocean. So let go, unclench your hands from the controls, break the idol of the self you have worshipped for so long. You are not the body that decays, nor the thoughts that wander. You are the witness. You are the breath of the divine in a vessel of clay. You are the silence between the notes. Trust the hand that guides the currents. Trust that when you close your eyes and fall into the darkness of the unknown, you are not falling into nothingness, you are falling into the arms of the one who is. And in that terrifying, beautiful surrender, when there is no longer a you to be afraid, you will finally find what you have been seeking for eternity. You are not just safe, you are finally home.